February 2003, People magazine headquarters, New York City. The photo editor is looking at a cover shot that's about to break the internet before the internet even knows what breaking means. Britney Spears and Justin Timberlake, fresh off their very public, very messy breakup, both wearing identical trucker hats with a logo nobody's ever heard of, Vaughn Dutch. This is the exact moment a $100 trucker hat became the most coveted accessory in America. But here's what nobody knew when that magazine hit newsstands. The man whose name was on those hats? He'd been dead for 11 years, and he would have hated every single person wearing his logo. Because Kenny Von Dutch Howard was a brilliant artist, a legendary pinstriper, and here's the part they didn't put on the trucker hats, a violent, racist alcoholic who died alone signing letters, Heil Hitler. And for a while, his name made people rich. By 2003, Von Dutch was generating $33 million in revenue. Paris Hilton wore it. Ashton Kutcher wore it on every episode of Punk'd. You couldn't walk through a mall without seeing that logo. But by 2009, the brand was worthless. So what happened? How did a dead man's signature become a fashion empire, then collapse into one of the most hated brands in America? And here's the real question. Can you separate art from the artist when the artist is literally a Nazi? Because the answer's way more complicated than you think. The artist nobody wanted to know. September 7th, 1929, Compton, California. Kenny Howard was born into a family of sign painters. By age 10, he could pinstripe professionally. His father, Wally, taught him everything: lettering, painting, precision. The kid was a natural, fastest man on the track team at Compton High, obsessed with motorcycles. Started earning money in the 1950s, pinstriping hot rods and custom bikes alongside guys like Dean Jeffries. He gave himself the name Von Dutch. His family called him Dutch because he was as stubborn as a Dutchman. He added the Von to sound more artistic, more European, more legitimate. And he was legitimate. His pinstriping was so perfect, it looked like machine work. He created the flying eyeball logo, that weird winged eye you'd later see on a million trucker hats. He built custom motorcycles. He made the mare's leg rifle for the TV show Wanted, Dead or Alive. But here's what nobody tells you about Kenny Howard. He was also violently racist, couldn't stand black people, worshipped Nazi Germany, wore swastikas, had a reputation in the California hot rod scene as someone you didn't want to be around unless you looked like him. Robert Williams, a friend and fellow artist, later said Kenny was quite a racist, didn't like anybody. In 1992, Kenny Howard died of alcohol-related complications. He was 63. He left everything to the Bruckers, a family he'd worked for. His daughters got nothing. Nothing except the rights to his name. The Hustlers. Mid-1990s, Los Angeles. Ed Boswell was an art collector selling Von Dutch patches at trade shows. He'd gotten the rights from Kenny's daughters after the artist died. At one of these shows, he met two guys who'd change everything. Michael Cassell, a former drug dealer who'd just finished a 4-year prison sentence. Bobby Vaughn, a competitive surfer who'd been running a surf skate label called Bronze Age. They decided to go into business together. The original idea? Garage-themed jeans and workwear. Blue-collar stuff that captured the same vibe as Kenny's art. Gritty, authentic, working-class cool. But they still hadn't created the thing that would change everything. In 1996, Cassell and Vaughn bought Boswell out of the company. Just straight up bought him out. Gave him some cash and sent him on his way. Ed Boswell would remember this later, and he would make them pay for it. The CEO and the designer 2000. The brand's growing, but it needs money. Real money. Enter Tony Sorensen, Danish entrepreneur. He sees potential in Von Dutch and invests, becomes CEO. Sorensen's first big move? Hire Christian Audigier. If you don't know that name, just know this. Christian Audigier understood celebrity better than anyone in fashion. He'd worked with Levi's, Diesel, Fiorucci. He knew how to make clothes famous without advertising. And in 2002, he came up with the trucker hat. Not just any trucker hat. A $100 trucker hat with the Von Dutch logo across the front. Inspired by Marlon Brando's motorcycle cap in The Wild One. Classic Americana, blue-collar nostalgia, working-class chic. The genius was in the price. $100 for a hat that cost maybe $5 to make. Expensive enough to feel exclusive, cheap enough that a college kid could justify buying one. But they needed someone to make it cool. And then the most famous woman in America walked into their lives. Enter Britney 2002, Los Angeles. Christian Audigier meets with Britney Spears. convinces her to wear Von Dutch. She does. She wears the trucker hat everywhere. Justin Timberlake starts wearing it too, and then they break up. The breakup heard round the world. Front page of People magazine, February 2003. Both of them wearing Von Dutch trucker hats. The free publicity was worth millions. But in 2003, something happened that would change Von Dutch forever. And it involved violence, betrayal, and a dead man's ghost coming back to haunt them all. The celebrity explosion. That People magazine cover changed everything. Suddenly, every celebrity in Hollywood wanted Von Dutch. Paris Hilton wore it, Lindsay Lohan wore it, Ashton Kutcher wore it on every single episode of Punk'd. Jay-Z, Beyoncé, Madonna, everyone. And America lost its goddamn mind. You couldn't go to a club without seeing 10 Von Dutch hats. Shopping malls sold out. Department stores begged for inventory. Audigier's strategy was simple. Give free product to every celebrity he could find. No contracts, no endorsement deals, just free hats and jackets and shirts. The celebrities wore them, paparazzi photographed them, magazines published the photos. Free advertising, everywhere. The brand wasn't selling clothing. It was selling the dream of looking like Paris Hilton, like you were part of that world. But here's where it gets dark. Behind the scenes, the founders were at war. The business explodes. 2003, sales hit $33 million. Wait, let me put that in perspective. This company went from selling patches at swap meets to generating $33 million in revenue in less than 7 years. They weren't just selling trucker hats anymore. They had jackets, t-shirts, jeans, accessories, everything. The logo was on bags, sunglasses, jewelry. Licensing deals started rolling in. Gadzooks signed an exclusive agreement for apparel and accessories. Eyewear companies, watch companies, everyone wanted the Von Dutch name. Every 60 seconds. Someone somewhere was buying a Von Dutch product. Bloomingdale's, Nordstrom, Neiman Marcus. Every major retailer had a Von Dutch section. But Sorensen started making moves. In 2002, he fired Bobby Vaughn. Just fired him, bought him out, and became sole owner. He also started sidelining Michael Cassell as a designer, giving more power to Audigier. Vaughn and Cassell were furious. The peak 2003 to early 2004. This is it, the absolute peak. Von Dutch trucker hats are reselling for $300, sometimes more. The original retail was $100. People are flipping them like sneakers. Ashton Kutcher's basically a walking Von Dutch billboard. Every episode of Punk'd, he's wearing the logo. The show's pulling millions of viewers. The brand opens flagship stores, not just in LA, New York, Miami, London. International expansion. This is the moment. A dead racist's name on a trucker hat worn by the most famous people in the world, making millions of dollars for guys who'd never met him. Kenny Howard would have been spinning in his grave, if he'd had one. They scattered his ashes in the Pacific Ocean. But here's where the story gets dark. The first cracks. 2004. You start seeing Von Dutch everywhere, not just on celebrities. Everywhere. The problem with giving away free product to every celebrity? Overexposure. Paris Hilton's wearing it, but so is your cousin in Ohio. So is the girl at Starbucks. So is literally everyone at the mall. It stopped being exclusive, and fashion, especially Y2K celebrity fashion, lives and dies on exclusivity. The fashion press started turning. They'd called it cool in 2002. By 2004, they were calling it Von Douche. Counterfeit Von Dutch products flooded the market. You could buy a fake hat at a gas station for $20, but behind the scenes, things were way worse. Vaughn and Cassell were openly hostile to Sorensen. At one point, and I'm not making this up, Cassell hired Pablo Escobar's grandson to intimidate Sorensen into selling his stake for $500,000. Sorensen refused, and that's when everything started falling apart. Layer 1, the overexposure problem. Here's what nobody talks about. By late 2004, Von Dutch wasn't aspirational anymore. It was basic. The same celebrity culture that made it cool destroyed it. When Paris Hilton, Lindsay Lohan, and Britney Spears all wear the same thing, and then everyone else wears it too, it stops being special. The brand that was supposed to represent underground hot rod culture and rebellious cool became mall fashion. Kohl's was selling Von Dutch, TJ Maxx, discount retailers. The $100 trucker hat was showing up in bargain bins for $15. It didn't feel exclusive anymore. It felt desperate. Sales started slipping. Not crashing yet, but slipping. And Ed Boswell, remember him? The guy they'd bought out in 1996, was watching all of this. Watching these guys get rich off the brand he'd started, and he was pissed. Layer 2, the letter. May 2004. Ed Boswell does something that will destroy Von Dutch forever. He leaks a letter to OC Weekly, a letter written by Kenny Von Dutch Howard in 1992, right before he died in the hospital. The letter's full of racist rants, anti-Semitic slurs, and it ends with, "Bye, Heil Hitler." The article comes out, and it's devastating. Remember, Michael Cassell and Bobby Vaughn are both men of color. They had no idea about Kenny Howard's Nazi sympathies. They'd built their entire brand around a name they thought represented artistic rebellion. Turns out it represented actual Nazis. Celebrities start dropping the brand immediately. Paris stops wearing it. Ashton stops wearing it on Punk'd. Retailers pull Von Dutch from shelves. The flying eyeball logo? Someone points out it's clearly derived from the Nazi Wehrmacht Adler, the eagle and swastika. Just replace the eagle with an eyeball, but it gets worse. Layer 3, the murder. North Hollywood. Bobby Vaughn shoots and kills a man named Aubrey Rivas outside a bar. Vaughn claims self-defense, says Rivas attacked him with a broken bottle. The jury eventually acquits him, rules it was justifiable homicide, but the damage is done. One of the co-founders of Von Dutch is on trial for first-degree murder. The headlines are everywhere. The brand's already toxic from the Nazi letter. Now it's associated with violence. Christian Audigier, the guy who made Von Dutch famous, sees the writing on the wall. In 2007, he leaves, starts his own brand, Ed Hardy. You know, the one with the tattoo designs and rhinestones that also became super popular, then super hated. Wait, let me put that in perspective. The brand went from $33 million in sales in 2003 to being so toxic that its star designer abandoned ship in 2007. Layer 4, the collapse. 2009, Tony Sorensen sells Von Dutch to Groupe Royer, a French footwear company. The sale price? They won't say. But industry insiders know it was a fraction of what the brand was worth at its peak. The company had become worthless. The stores start closing. The licensing deals disappear. The celebrity endorsements are long gone. By 2010, Von Dutch is a punchline, a cautionary tale, the poster child for Y2K fashion excess. Fashion bloggers use it as shorthand for trashy. Comedians joke about it. It becomes the thing you wore when you had terrible taste. Every single celebrity who'd worn it pretends they never did. The brand that was everywhere? Gone. Where are they now? Michael Cassell? Disappeared from fashion. Lives privately. Bobby Vaughn? Same. Stepped away after the trial. Tony Sorensen? Moved on to other ventures. Christian Audigier? Made millions with Ed Hardy, then watched that brand collapse too. He died in 2015. Ed Boswell, the guy who leaked the Nazi letter out of spite, he later admitted he knew about Kenny Howard's beliefs all along. He'd been selling those t-shirts at swap meets for years. As Sorensen later said, if Ed Boswell thinks Von Dutch is a Nazi and he sells his t-shirts, who's the Nazi now? But here's what happened next that nobody expected. Gen Z discovers a dead brand Instagram. Kylie Jenner posts a photo wearing a Von Dutch trucker hat, not ironically, not as a joke. She's genuinely wearing it as a fashion statement. And then Gen Z discovered Von Dutch, but they discovered it differently than millennials did. They weren't alive for the Paris Hilton era. They don't remember the Nazi letter. They don't know about the murder trial. To them, Von Dutch is just vintage Y2K fashion, retro, cool in an ironic but also serious way. TikTok explodes with Y2K nostalgia, low-rise jeans, trucker hats, Von Dutch. In 2019, the brand hires Ed Goldman as general manager. He starts making connections with LA's hip-hop community. Rappers start wearing it again. In 2021, Hulu releases a documentary, The Curse of Von Dutch, a brand to die for. The story's so insane it gets millions of views, and the brand comes back to life, the current state. Von Dutch is purchased by WSG, White Space Group, global rights, full relaunch. The brand's making money again. Not $33 million, but it's profitable. Vintage Von Dutch trucker hats from the original 2003 run, they're selling for $200 to $400 on resale sites. Depop, Poshmark, Grailed. Most of the people buying them weren't even born when Britney and Justin wore them on People magazine. Charli XCX releases a song called Von Dutch in 2024. It trends on TikTok. The brand that died because of overexposure and scandal is now cool again because Gen Z doesn't remember the overexposure or the scandal. The real question. So here's what I want to know. Can you actually separate art from the artist? Because Kenny Howard never made a dime from Von Dutch, the clothing brand. He was dead before it even started. The guys who built it had no idea he was a Nazi, but his name is still on every product. His flying eyeball logo is still the symbol. Is it Kenny Howard's brand? Or is it something completely different that just borrowed his name? Tracy Mills, the black man who brought celebrities to Von Dutch, said it perfectly. When he found out about Kenny's racism, he said, "See, he put it out there in the universe, and the universe is like, oh, that's what you don't want? Here you go." The man who hated black people, whose brand was built by a former drug dealer and a surfer, made famous by a black celebrity stylist, worn by people Kenny would have despised. And now, it's back, reborn for a generation that doesn't know the history. Turns out, you can kill a brand, but you can't keep it dead.